Hey guys, what is up? It is Austin here, bringing you guys another episode of the Ray Talk Sports Podcast. I know, now I'm finally saying the name. I'm still not the biggest fan of it. I'm still open to changing it, but we're on to episode 4 of the podcast. Week 4 in the NFL is wrapped up. We're on to week 5, and week 4 was very soul-crushing for me. It was extremely difficult to get through. So if you've seen the previous episodes, I'm a Bengals fan. I pick the Bengals every single game, no matter what. We could be 0-16 in the last game of the season. I'm going to pick us to win because I'm just going to root for my team. That's how I am at the end of the day. So I picked us to upset the Broncos on Monday Night Football, and we traveled to Denver just to kick a field goal. That's about all we did. Oh, we got an interception. I guess that was cool too. But it was a painful watch. It was really difficult to get through. Just especially with how the game started, it started out pretty okay. Cincinnati made it down the field. We were in scoring range. We honestly should have scored a touchdown if Browning throws T. Higgins a better ball. But even on the opening drive, where we had some moderate success, I noticed some very concerning trends that scared me. One of the biggest ones that I saw was that Browning was missing open receivers. Jamar Chase was wide open twice on the opening drive, both for massive gains, both for potential touchdowns. Browning didn't even target him on one of them. And that seemed to be a trend throughout the game because there are plenty of routes throughout the game where Jamar Chase was running wide open across the middle or where he was getting open deep and he did not see the ball. They threw plenty of jump balls to T. Higgins. It seemed like their game plan was just pretty much what it was last year, attack Riley Moss. Riley Moss put up a much better game this year. T. Higgins did not have nearly as dominant as a performance. He had a very great opening drive catch, but he never really lived up to it after that. And the offensive line, goodness, they couldn't block three-man pressures. It was a nightmare to get through. They couldn't block three-man pressures. They couldn't even block a two-man pressure, I guarantee, if someone actually sent one. It was embarrassing. The run game was embarrassing. Browning was inaccurate. The line wasn't giving him any time to do anything. The receivers, I don't even really think Jamar Chase got locked up. Like, genuinely, I don't think he got locked up. I don't think T. Higgins got locked up. I think Jamar was getting open. Browning wasn't reading the field. And even Gesicki at one point was open for a huge gain, and Jake Browning doesn't even see him. So, there's a lot of issues for sure with Zach Taylor. I genuinely thought this could be the game that gets Zach Taylor fired. Honestly, that didn't happen. That usually doesn't happen in Cincinnati, but I wasn't surprised they didn't fire him, but I wouldn't have been surprised if they did, because all the penalties. It just seems like a coaching malpractice. You lose Joe Burrow, but you still have a talented roster. You're seeing rosters with less do better, and it's all from coaching. I think that one of the greatest examples is the New England Patriots. The Patriots are great. I think they have the same record as the Bengals, but they look so much better in every single game. They have a bit of a penalty problem for sure, but Drake May is making plays with Kayshon Boutte, Hunter Henry. No disrespect to any of them, but they're not top 5 at their position. We have Jamar Chase. It shouldn't be this difficult to get the offense going. And it has been such an issue watching the last 2 weeks. And it really reveals just how much Joe Burrow carries this team whenever he's in. Everyone says he's, made by his receivers, even though he's I think his record is 10-4 when Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both aren't in the lineup. Which, I think that's interesting. No one really talks about. But, he's had his fair share of struggles, but goodness gracious. At least the team won games when he was healthy this year. Technically, he's going to be 2-0 as a starter, even though he didn't finish the second game. But, last year carried us to 9-8. Missed the playoffs, unfortunately, but carried the team to a positive record. It's amazing. We had a winning record last year with all things considered. The defense looks like it's even worse than it was last year. Even Trey Hendrickson wasn't getting any pressure. And just, if I really wanted to, I could talk 30 minutes straight about all the issues I saw with the Bengals. The only player who didn't disappoint me was Mitchell Tinsley, because I think he got one target and he caught it. I was really happy to see him in the game after the way he performed against Jacksonville with his big catch and the way he performed in the preseason. And, Chase Brown didn't fumble. And, I can't really blame him too much because the offensive line, there's no run blocking. So Cincinnati is kind of a disaster. And I know, people are Joe Burrow doesn't make the defense better. But I think what people don't understand is Joe Burrow manages the game better. Joe Burrow's in, your offensive drives are longer. They're sometimes more methodical, He likes to work the clock, but even so, even if he just comes in and he plays average, you're taking so much time of possession away from the other team. With Browning, you got one good drive and then you're 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Like, you're just sacrificing so much time of possession. And I don't think people realize that. Like, yes, he does not play for the defense, but he affects the way the defense can play because he can keep them off the field longer, give them more time to rest. With Browning in, the defense is on the field the majority of the game. So, again, I could keep going. The Cincinnati Bengals, they're embarrassing right now. I love my team. I'm always going to ride with my team. But holy fuck, we're embarrassing. And I think the last thing I'll say on them, so I can actually move on to other topics, because I don't want to be all doom and gloom. What could we do to save things? I really don't want to see Zach Taylor go, but it's clear his scheme is not. It's not working. It's really not working. So I think maybe you ride out the season with Zach, just because firing in the middle of the year. I don't think that solves anything. I don't think that makes us better. I would love to see us trade for Jameis. He's a lot cheaper. Some people were saying go after Kirk Cousins. I really don't like that idea. But go after Jameis, who is mobile and has a rocket of an arm. I mean, he might throw 20 interceptions, but he's going to throw like 35 touchdowns to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So that would be my instant Band-Aid fix, but you can't fix a lot of it. A lot of it's just waiting for Joe to get healthy, which is unfortunate. But aside from the Bengals being the worst team in football, and they are. By the way, last thing, we play the Lions next, so God help us. But on a much more brighter note, to praise somebody, Puka Nacua had an amazing game, and a lot of people have come to the conclusion that he's entered that top 5 receiver conversation, and I think he's in the conversation. I could even see him being number 5. I actually wrote down a list of my top 5 receivers. These were who I had in the top 5 coming into the year, but they can still be subject to change, especially because one is injured. But number 1 in the league, I have Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is the best receiver in the league. Is there some personal bias in there? I won't deny that. If you say there is, there probably is. But I think the touchdowns back it up. And, he's really struggling now, obviously, without his quarterback. But he's not the problem. He's getting open. The ball's just not getting to him. But I'd have Jamar Chase at 1. Justin Jefferson, I'd have it 2. I think those two are neck and neck. Justin Jefferson, you can make the argument of having him above Chase because he's been performing even with other quarterbacks in. But, Jamar was able to do that a couple years ago. So, again, I don't think he's the problem. But if you want to make that argument, I understand it. I can understand having Jefferson at 1. Then at number 3, I will say I changed it. Coming into the year, number 3 was A.J. Brown. But number 3 for me is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I don't care that he's not the most, big-bodied receiver, go up and snatch contested catches. He produces. He produces at an elite level, and he's been doing it for years. I think he's one of the most underappreciated receivers. And in fantasy, he's just an absolute demon. But, obviously that's not factoring into my top 5. But Amon-Ra is just so consistent, and he performs the entire game. He keeps that same energy in the entire game, which I think is a really underrated part of his game. So he's my number 3. And number 4, originally number 3, was A.J. Brown. Now, he's a victim of his system and his play caller, kind of like Jamar Chase is at the moment in a similar situation. But, the one game they decided to go to him, he was absolutely dominant. I think A.J. Brown is still a top 5 receiver. He's just in a very, very terrible situation. And then number 5, the one I could see you subbing Puka Nacua in for, I had was CeeDee Lamb. He was historic last year. He was amazing. And he was making plays that very few receivers can make. But if you don't have CeeDee in your top 5, and you want to put Puka in, I could totally understand that. Puka's been that kind of a player whenever he's healthy. He is absolutely astounding. He's so much fun to watch, too. Just watch Puka Nacua. But transitioning from that receiver to another receiver, my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year, my guy from Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka, he has been absolutely sensational. I don't know if he scored a touchdown every game this season, but it feels like he has a highlight play in every single game this season. The past week against the Eagles, it was the catch in double coverage where the ball perfectly just goes through. He makes the deep play. He had a one-handed catch 2 weeks ago. Week 1, the game-winning touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns that game. Emeka Egbuka is amazing, and he's my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I know a lot of people said Cam Ward, And it's really easy for me to come out now and say Ibuka, but Ibuka's my pick. I don't think anybody is going to catch him in that race. Ted McMillan, he's been fantastic, but I just think Emeka Ibuka has a way better quarterback throwing him the ball. And one interesting thing I wanted to point out, too, is another Bengals head coach struggling, and that's Brian Callahan, who was considered to be an offensive-minded guru. Apparently he was what helped Joe Burrow take his game to the next level, and he goes to Tennessee, and they look lifeless. I think on paper we might have a worse offense, but they're pretty close. They literally scored 0 points against the Texans, and he's relieved his play calling duties. And I just think it's really interesting that these coaches, when you see them play without Joe Burrow, just how they're looking. Brian Callahan probably about to get fired in Tennessee. Zach Taylor should have been fired in Cincinnati, and he's just spiraling out of control. So I thought that was interesting. But now we're going into my Week 5 predictions, which I'm very eager for a hopefully better week of football. I just feel like the last slate of games weren't as interesting. The tie between Green Bay, oh my God, the tie between Green Bay and Dallas. That game was so frustrating to me because I actually didn't watch much of it. I was streaming. But then afterwards, my girlfriend and I, she was like, I want to see it because she's a Packers fan. I enjoy watching the Packers. We turn on the fourth quarter. My boy Jordan Love throwing darts, throwing huge throws across the middle, in the corner of the end, anywhere that he needed to. He was putting the ball, and he answered the call. Dallas will go down and take the lead. Jordan Love came right back to take the lead back. And then at the end of the game, gets them into field goal range. They tie the game up. They go into overtime. And what I saw Matt LaFleur do in that overtime made me so upset because when the Packers got into field goal range, I think they had like 3.5 minutes left. I was like, oh my God, this game is over. This game is over. Jordan Love is playing the way he is. And Matt LaFleur wants to run the ball, waste as much time as possible on the last play of the game on a bubble screen. For some reason, when you have no timeouts left, there's about, 30 seconds left, and you run a bubble screen in bounds. Insane play call. But then they take forever getting to the line, and then it's a shot to the end zone that's dropped, and they kick a field goal to tie it. Ridiculous sequence. I hate ties. The NFL should do away with ties, but the fact that Matt LaFleur looked like he accepted a tie, that he was fine with tying the game, infuriated not only me but also my girlfriend. She was freaking out at the end of the game, like, what are we doing? And I don't blame her. It was bizarre the way that was coached. Matt LaFleur, I don't think he should be fired or be on the hot seat, but he should answer some questions for sure. But the first game of this Week 5 slate, sorry about my chair being creaky as ever, but the Thursday night game, we got the Niners at the Rams. It was actually just announced Brock Purdy's not playing, Jawan Jennings isn't playing, and Ricky Pearsall is not playing. I think their number one receiver is Demarcus Robinson, so give me the Rams at home to win that game. Next, we got Vikings at the Browns. It's an international game. This is Dylan Gabriel's first start with the Browns. Carson Wentz, 3 straight AFC North opponents, actually. I just thought about that. Give me the Browns in an upset win. I think Dylan Gabriel can, inject some life. And in the very limited play time that we did see him, he didn't look all that bad. He looked pretty solid in the preseason. He's the most NFL ready between him and Shedeur Sanders, in my opinion. And, I don't know what it is, but I sometimes when that team gets a quarterback change, you see new life injected in them. And the Browns have an elite defense, and we saw Carson Wentz struggle with the Steelers last week, and the Steelers have had their defensive issues. So I just think that Browns' defensive front is going to dominate that Vikings offensive line. The battle is won in the trenches in that game. It's going to be one of those games. So give me the Browns with an upset. I think they improved their record. Next, we have the Cowboys at the Jets. I'm going to take the Cowboys. Dak Prescott looked awesome. He looked amazing against the Packers. He had a fantastic game. And the Jets' defense seems way worse than the Packers. So, theoretically, I think Dak would play even better. But I think the Cowboys are going to be all over the Jets. The Jets are terrible this year. Give me the Cowboys at the Jets. I'll take the Cowboys easily. Giants at Saints. I could see the upset here. And you know what? I think I'm going to pick the Saints for an upset in this game as well. The New Orleans Saints played like a couple good quarters of football against Buffalo. I think their head coach, Kellen Moore, is going to limit them. I really think he is. But I can see them sneaking out an upset here. The Giants are riding high off that upset victory against, the Chargers, which was a crazy game, by the way. Jackson Dart winning his first start. Shout out to him. I don't think he continues that success on the road in New Orleans, where they are just dying for a win. Spencer Rattler still hasn't won a game as a starting quarterback. Give me the Saints in an upset victory at home. It'll be one of their few of the season. I think I'm just picking all upsets. I'm not meaning to do that. Next, we have Raiders at Colts. Not going to spend much time on this game. Taking the Colts. Geno Smith has been awful this year. Just terrible. 2 games this year so far with 3 interceptions in each, and he has looked awful. Daniel Jones, I think, is way more stable. He had a rough game last week, too, against the Rams, but give me the Colts at home against the Raiders, seriously. I like that game. It's been the easiest one to pick so far. Dolphins at Panthers. This is one of the more difficult ones because the Panthers have had games where they've looked solid. They also had games where they look horrible, and they're just coming off getting their ass whipped by the Patriots. So give me the Dolphins on the road. I think they're going to build a little bit of momentum. I don't think they're going to be this terrible, awful team that everyone thinks they're going to be. They kind of remind me of the Bengals from like a couple years ago when we started 0-2 and we started to catch fire. I don't think Miami's going to be as good as the 2022 Bengals were. But I think they'll be similar to 2023 Cincinnati. Start off 0-2, 1-2, 1-3, and then they'll start to catch their stride. And they're at that 1-3 point. I think the Panthers are an easier opponent. They're one of the easier matchups. On the road, it could be tough. The Panthers have a really strong defense, but give me Miami to win this game. Next, we have Broncos at Eagles. I'm going to be honest. I think this is going to be a massacre. I know the Broncos just beat the shit out of us, but I really think a lot of it was more to do with how badly we are coached and how badly we perform than it is for the Broncos being that great. So give me the Eagles, especially at home. They're not dropping this game. I do not see that. Next, we have the Texans at the Ravens. And you know what? I could still see the Ravens pulling this off. Cooper Rush is a solid backup quarterback. They're at home. They're dying for a win. Lamar's probably going to miss 2 to 3 weeks. So if Cooper Rush starts, I'm still going to take the Texans, though. I'm still going to take C.J. Stroud. I think he's going to start to catch fire, similar to the Dolphins. I think they're going to make a mid-season comeback. And I think the Texans are probably on their way to getting 500. I don't think their season's over. I know they look rough, but I think that win against the Titans, that was not an impressive win. I mean, I know they won 26-0 or something like that, but they played a terrible team. But it was they needed to start. They needed to get the camel off their back, They needed that step in the right direction. And I think they're going to start to catch fire now. So give me the Texans over the Ravens. Next, we have the Titans at the Cardinals. And this is like a mid-team versus a really bad team. So I could see the Titans pulling off an upset. I want to see Cam Ward win, but I don't think they're going to win on the road in Arizona. Arizona's not a bad team. Give me the Cardinals to win at home. They're going to bounce back. Next is Buccaneers at Seahawks. Ooh, this is a tough one. This is really tough because Baker is awesome, but he had one of the worst turnovers I ever saw against Philadelphia. Seattle has an amazing defense, and Sam Darnold is playing pretty solid. So you know what? Give me the Seahawks at home. I'm believing in the Seahawks in this game. Next, we have Lions at Bengals. God help me. God help us all. Why is this a 325 game? I don't know, but I'm picking the Bengals. You know me, I'm riding with my team. Jamar Chase is going to go crazy against that Lions secondary. Jake Browning's just going to be throwing him fuck-it balls all game. And Jamar Chase is pissed off. He's going to play angry. And he is going to single-handedly have a 3-touchdown game, just like he did a couple years ago at the Cardinals. Jake Browning's going to have inflated stats because of that. Everyone's going to think we're back. And, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to pull off the upset. Commanders at Chargers. Give me the Chargers. Jaden Daniels, I think, is playing, but he's still recovering. I don't know how 100% he's going to be, if he's like 100 or like 85%. But give me the Chargers. They're not a bad team. They're going to bounce back at home. It was a bad loss against the Giants, but I trust in Justin Herbert. He is still a great quarterback. I know I joke about him a lot. I take shots, but it's because he's in the same draft class as Burrow, and I'm going to ride with my guy. But we can appreciate multiple great quarterbacks. Justin Herbert is great. He had a bad game. He's going to bounce back. The team is going to bounce back, and they will beat the Commanders. Next, we have Patriots at the Bills, and it's a Sunday night football game. I am taking the Bills, but I could honestly see a Patriots upset. The Patriots are not bad, and they've been competitive in pretty much all their games. So I see Drake May as an ascending quarterback who's still going to make mistakes, and which is why I think Buffalo is going to win it, because Josh Allen is, I think, going to be better with the ball than New England, although he did have his first turnover last week. But I think the Bills are going to win this, especially this being a home primetime game. That's a rough environment for Drake May to go into. So give me the Buffalo Bills, but I think Drake May is going to throw for over 300 yards. And I think it's going to be a really good game. And then the last game of the week, Monday Night Football, Chiefs at the Jaguars. This is a huge game. The Chiefs are starting to catch momentum. The Jaguars have a little bit of momentum. Even though I've been down on them, I've been roasting this team. They're 3-1, which is a really good record to be at this point of the season. You're damn near perfect. And the Chiefs are coming to town. If the Jaguars win this, I think they're almost playoff locks, putting you at 4-1 with a conference win over the Chiefs and possibly getting first place in your division if Indy loses. That's going to be huge late in the season, which is why I still like the Bengals season isn't yet over. They have 2 AFC wins already. They beat a divisional opponent on the road, and they beat the Jaguars, who I think are going to be a wild card-esque team. So this game, I think, is going to have huge end-of-the-season implications, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs. This is such a huge game. Patrick Mahomes rarely crumbles in the moment. I know I make a lot of jokes about him too, but he's still like, he's going down as a top 10 quarterback of all time already, easily. So I'm going to trust the Chiefs. They're going to get it figured out, and they have Xavier Worthy back. So I think that opens up their offense a bunch. So give me the Chiefs. So those are all my picks. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast. And this one was a little shorter than the other ones, but I don't really feel like much else happened in the week that was super interesting. I know we had the crazy Tyreek Hill injury, which obviously would never wish that on anybody. But Tyreek's kind of, he's a bit of a controversial figure, so I didn't really want to talk about him on the podcast yet. But obviously, on a human level, I don't wish that on anybody. Praying that he has a full recovery and a speedy recovery, of course. That's just a terrible, terrible injury. Felt so bad for him watching that. But, not too much else crazy really happened this week in the NFL. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for all the feedback on the recent episodes. And I can't believe that we're already on episode 4. We're going to soon be on episode 5, halfway to 10. And after the NFL season's over, I've been thinking about still doing this series during NBA season. So let me know what you guys think. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And hopefully I see you guys next time. Peace.